Yeah. So, the Council of Architecture, as a regulating body, they already have the updated the manual about the regulation for architectural education. So that happened in 2020 after several years of efforts, because 83 was the year when the first regulation for architectural education published. But after that, in spite of the number of years and then number of change in scenario of education, like it was not amended. But finally, 2020 was the year the government had accepted the amendment or the amended version of the architectural education regulation. Okay, but there were talks that council is doing something about the education, but not about the profession. Okay, though there were handbooks written by the council, they were limited in scope. They had only few pages of the practice. Architectural practice was discussed only in few pages alone. So that was not adequate. That was not the whatever few pages they already had in the as part of the handbook had its own limitations and arguments. So council finally decided to come out with the manual of architectural practice. The manual of architectural practice with the architect Habib Khan, the president of Council of Architecture. It was his idea that something should be done about that, and then he formed a committee from you can say all over India. Like there were members from Himachal Pradesh in the north to Thiruvananthapuram in the south, so all well chosen such that they have in-depth knowledge about the practice, in-depth experience about the practice, and passion to write about that. So that was the kind of selection that was done by the Council of Architecture, and they were also assisted by the council office, with the legal officer in council and the registrar himself, and also the president and the vice president who contributed to their to the writing of this manual of architectural practice. Instead of writing, I should say it's compiling of this manual. So initial discussions took place in which the content was discussed. What should be the content of the manual? That was discussed elaborately, and then we made some draft content component, and that was discussed, rediscussed, and so on. And finally, only this we decided it should be. Initially, we thought we can have 6 volumes, and what should be the content of each of the volume we discussed, and then finally, what we have done is in 5 volumes, all these various aspects were compiled. So we decided on the contents, and I should talk about a little bit about the 7 members who were the prime part of the committee. Architect, I was talking from north to south, and I'll go in the same same way in telling few lines about each of the members. Architect Vijay Upal is a past vice president of Council of Architecture itself. That is one thing, and not only that, he was architect in chief of Himachal Pradesh, and which is itself is a positive difference, in the sense the other states, they will have a chief architect reporting to an engineer, reporting a chief engineer of that area or something like that, whereas here the architect in chief is an independent authority himself, reporting only to the government or reporting to the chief secretary or chief minister, that kind of a thing. I should talk about three eminent members of the committee. Sandeep Shikre happens to be one of the big practice, heading a big practice in Mumbai, and also is having an office in Pune also. One can, as an argument, one can say is the designer of the tallest building, because tallest mixed use building with 72 floors in Mumbai was designed by him, and is having a comprehensive practice with about 250 plus technocrats in his organization, and recipient of several awards and accolades. So that Sandeep Shikre happens to be one of the members, and we have Salil Ranadeve. Salil Ranadeve is a graduate of CEPT, and also did his further studies in Zurich, and recipient of several awards both in India and abroad, and very knowledgeable and very vocal architect. And the other person from again Mumbai happened to be Prashant Sutaria. Prashant happens to have practice in about 78 states, and then he flies from one state to the other and having very good practice, and also again a recipient of several awards and accolades, and also he's been invited to several places for giving a talk and things like that. So other than this, we have architect Mahesh of Mahesh and Iyer from Thiruvananthapuram, maybe the senior most member of this committee, and you can interestingly he's got 2 coffee table books about his architecture, one on timber architecture, of which he is an authority and an expert, and also with a so long exposure in architecture, he has written another book also on his architecture. That way his besides providing the content for this manual, his know-how about the printing and publishing also was very helpful for the committee. Okay, so other than this, we have architect Vaidyanathan of Pondicherry. He happens to be the member of the Council of Architecture, representing nominated by Government of Pondicherry, and incidentally he happens to be the convener of the committee also. When I say Vaidyanathan as the convener of the committee, is taken over from me as a convener, because as a protocol, the member from Council of Architecture is expected to be a convener of any of the committees of the council. Originally I was the convener when I was member of the thing. Since I had to pass on my baton to the successor from IEA, Lalichan Zacharias. So I had to hand over the convenership also to Vaidyanathan. So how we went about, we had, thanks to COVID, we had online meetings. We had 64 meetings to discuss the manual of architecture practice and compile it. And of that 62 meetings, I was a convener, and every Saturday sharp at 10 we will all be online, and nearly 3 hours of discussions will go on, arguments will go on, And in between these Saturdays also there will be one-to-one meeting or conference call of 3 or something like that to discuss it further. And every meeting will be minuted. The council officials helped in recording the minutes of the meeting. That will come to me for corrections, and then it will be presented in the next meeting. Like that only we went ahead. So these 5 volumes we finally the content we decided, and then see the first volume consists of some definitions, because to start with we should tell what is architecture, or who is an architect, and so on, that one, and a little bit of background of the profession itself. That part we have talked about the profession in the global level itself, how the profession evolved and how is it happening, that briefly we have discussed that, and also about the Indian scenario, how the profession has evolved in Indian context, and what is the current scenario. That's also we discussed with reference to the formation of the enacting of Architects Act 1972 in the Parliament, and that part we have discussed. And then the whole act itself is reproduced in this manual in the first volume. In addition to the act, we have also reproduced the what can be called as the code of conduct or the ethics. It is known as regulation, architects regulation about the code of conduct, architects conduct regulations. Okay, that is also reproduced here. But in addition to reproducing the present ethics regulations, what we have done is we have also discussed in detail like how the ethics part of it should be henceforth taken forward in case any amendment is done or something like that. Now, that is also discussed in the volume 1. Volume 1 further discusses about the role of architect, and the not only role of architect in the architectural and building field, but also otherwise, like as seen in terms of journalism, in terms of other connected specialities, like that. So that also the role of architect and beyond. That's what we call it. That is all these things are discussed in the volume 1, and volume 2 talks about, having known what is an architect, what is the role of architect and all that, one should know how the architects are engaged. When you are talking about how they are engaged, it's not the specifically addressed to the architects alone, because the whole manual itself is not just for architects alone. It is meant for all stakeholders connected with building industry and all stakeholders building with architecture. Okay, so in that point of view, like suppose we call the person who is engaging, or the entity who is engaging us as a client. So the client should know what are the various methods by which the engagement of architects can happen. Okay, in that point of view, it's meant for the stakeholders. Okay, architects should also know like these are the various ways, but the client should know how the architect should be engaged. So that is discussed in detail, and also there is a tabular column given in which like the 5-6 different methods in which engagement of architect can happen. Like if the architect is well known on a one-to-one basis or something like it can be just a nomination itself, or it can be like it can be request for proposal. A method can be expression of interest, inviting expression of interest, or other one is request for a proposal, okay, or a competition. Okay, empanelment is also a method by which the engagement can happen. So, in the competition itself, here in the tabular column what we are given is these methods are mentioned, and then it's also mentioned to whom it's best suited for, or which kind of project is best suited for. Like that we have given for 5-6 aspects which are related to each method, and we have mentioned competitions. So far the competitions have been happening in different ways, and then not in a uniform, there was no guideline uniformly, so that each client or each person who wants to float a competition has written their own method of conducting a competition, but there should be some kind of uniformity, some kind of parity. So, in that point of view, this manual gives the guidelines for conducting the competition. In that again we have given different methods by which it can be conducted. For instance, it can be just an ideas competition, it can be an open competition, or it can be limited competition or invited competition. Like that it is 4-5 different methods by which the competition can happen. Is all given. Formats are given, like how the jury should be selected, how the jury should evaluate. Like that we have given all aspects of competition, how it should be competed. For instance, if a corporate or a government body wants to conduct a competition to get their project design, like why they go for a competition? They want a choice, they want to look at various options from which they should select the things. Like for that only they are conducting a competition. So, how it should be conducted? In a fair manner, in an ethical manner. So, that has to be given. So, that is what is provided in this manual. We have given exhibits. A client who wants to engage architects for through a competition method, they can just follow this method and then conduct a competition. So, that is available now. The other one, so these are the engagement of architects is how it is done is given in volume number 2. Volume 3 talks about contracts. When I say contracts, I mean the agreement between the architect and the client. Okay, often particularly youngsters, they do not have anything in writing, but by just trust, or maybe by taking a risk or something like that, they do services, very often ending up with the issue of non-payment and so on. So what council advises is, don't whenever you are doing a project, let it be in writing. What are the terms and conditions? What is the fee structure? What is you are also committing what are all the deliverables, what you are providing, your services. That also you should be honest enough to tell, these are the services I am providing, and then for this under these terms and conditions, and this for this fee. So, that both sides should be honest. So, in that point of view, we have given contract. Contract is nothing but an agreement between an architect and the client. Okay, under what terms and what kind of fees and what services. So, here often people are worried about the voluminous contracts. So, what we have done is, we have given 3 types of contracts. One is a precise one with few pages, so that but all the important aspects are mentioned here, the services, the fee structure, payment and all that is all discussed in that, but it is a brief one, not a very voluminous one. Whereas, when it is a huge project, when it is a complex project, we cannot manage with just 4-page agreement or 4-page contract. So, for that we have suggested an elaborate one, not missing out any aspect that is likely to happen when it comes to a large project. So, that is but something in between is also given. We call it standard contract. Okay, precise contract, standard contract, and also an elaborate one. All the three are given. For huge project, you necessarily go for human. You should not worry about the volume, how many pages and all that, but you should not miss out anything. So that one we are given. And for ordinary house or something, we need not go for a 100-page voluminous contract. So there we have given a simple one. Okay, but for a medium-sized project, it cannot be too concise and it cannot be too voluminous also. So something in between, we call it standard contract. So these three are given, and we have here, like I was telling it, the role of architect and role and responsibility of the client, both are discussed in that, both are given in this. Like both sides should be, there is a kind of a win-win scenario by providing all these things. So that is the volume number 3. Volume 4 is an interesting part of the manual of architectural practice. Okay, everyone is interested in get to know how much you get, like whether it's worth the services you have provided, worth your effort or not. No, so that way, volume 4 is an interesting one. And actually, Council of Architecture professional documents all along had this aspect also. Only thing is, it was not very elaborate. For instance, someone would have seen in the professional document what is a fee structure. The number you find is 5%. Now I'm reminded of something happened years back when architect J.R. Balla, who was president of Council of Architecture, when he came to Madras. I am telling Madras because those days it was known as Madras. There was a national convention about 24 years back. I think it was in 94, when we organized. As part of the convention, we wanted the president of IE and president of Council of Architecture to come on the stage together and then face the architects. Okay, so that happened, and at that time, like there was a question and answer session also. Like J.R. Balla was on the stage, and I was part of the audience. Okay, I asked the question, why this 5%? How did you arrive at this 5%? I asked this question, and he immediately made a quick calculation of this 1.5%, this is something like that. And then actually it is coming on 5.25%. We rounded it off to 5. This is what he said. It was an extempo answer, like he didn't have anything to refer and tell how they arrived at 5 and all. The extempo answer, and J.R. Balla himself, like he was telling, and that was to my question, he did that. The point is, this question was being asked in several architects forum and things like that. Like not satisfying the people who are questioning and things. See, even architects, because the president himself is telling, I would have accepted that, but the clients do not. Okay, the simple reason is, when we have so many typologies, so different scale of projects and different complexity of project, how can it be just one number 5? So that's why we thought there should be a volume talking about the price, the fee structure. Okay, the result, there is the volume number 4 talks elaborately about that. Not only the elaborate discussion, but also they have made a simple tabular columns also, tabulation also. The tabulation is an interesting spreadsheet. The spreadsheet, you have 10 typology in the verticals, and in the horizontal column you find the scale of the project starting from 0 to 50 lakhs and so on. Then the 7th scale is 1000 crore plus. So there are 7 columns in which it's given 0 to 50, 50 to like that, few crores, and they varying like that, and then 500 plus and 1000 plus crores also, because the volume is meant for all architects. There will be a small town architect doing only 1 crore, 2 crore project or something like that, and there are architects who are doing 1000 plus also. So this manual that is prepared by the Council of Architecture is meant for all the architects, not only for the architects but also for the stakeholders, the clients, the consultants, the construction people, and so on. So in that point of view, the tabular column talks about 10 typology. 10 typologies means a single house is also a typology, and then multiple apartment is also a typology. Likewise, you have hospitality, you have industry, you have institutional, and so on. Like that, about 10 different typologies are there. So all the typologies are mentioned or tabulated, and each typology again you have simple and complex. Why should there be a differentiation of a typology into simple and complex? For instance, if you are talking about as an example I am telling, a hotel, it can be a 10-room lodge in a small town, or a 500-key 5-star or 6-7-star hotel in a large city. So both are hospitality projects only. But so to differentiate that only, simple and complex is given for each typology. For all the 10 typologies, we have simple and complex, the complexity is also mentioned, and the scale of project again is provided. For when you see the overall spreadsheet, for each of this typology, depending on what scale of project, what typology, and whether it's simple or complex, a decimal is given. Decimal in the sense a number is given. As against the 5 we have been all along talking, the percentage is given in even to the extent of 2 decimals also. Okay, so you can see between simple and complex in a typology itself, for a 50 lakhs or 1 crore project, you can see how much what's the difference. No, that kind of intricate or detailed work has been done, and then this is there. As against what I was discussing with J.R. Balla 25 years back. So this is the work we have done. Of course, this is also we can always the whole manual, it's a dynamic one. If there are good suggestions and good logical comments and so on, it's going to be updated every now and then. So that can happen. But to start with, when compared to the professional document which was talking about 5% and then only about companies, now the fee structure, again the spreadsheet I was talking about, there is one spreadsheet which is talking about comprehensive services. Comprehensive services in the sense it includes the structural design, MEP, and so on. That is what is comprehensive, concept to completion. Okay, that is comprehensive services. For that is what the council is also suggesting that everyone should do. At the same time, council is not blind to other methods of methods adopted by some of the architects. Okay, but we do suggest the comprehensive services. We have given the spreadsheet for that. The other spreadsheet is for services in which the structural, other engineering, MEP, and so on, maybe the client may be directly paying. Of course, you have to interact with them also, and then so that it's properly integrated, but the fee may be paid by the client directly, or may be paid by PMC or whatever it is. So taking into account, there's a separate tabulation for that also. Same 10 typologies and 2 complexity in each, and also 7 different scale of projects. For comprehensive services, how much, and for the architectural services without the structural and other components, how much. These are given. In addition to this for architecture, there are tabular columns suggesting the fee structure, or should I call it prescribing the fee structure for landscape, interior, and also conservation. Okay, so for these kind of consultancy services also the fee structure is suggested. And also what we have to note in this is the services for which these fees, that is very important, like the deliverables, like if you are providing these services, these are the this is the fee structure. Okay, that one should understand, like it's not just you make a sketch and give it and then ask for a fee or something like that. Is a totally different issue. But if you are providing all these services, that's why the previous chapter is previous volume is talking about the contract. Like there you are writing down what are the services and what is the fee. So here the method by which, in fact, in addition to the tabulation I was talking about, is giving the percentage based on the gross constructed value of the project. The volume also describes about at each stage how do you calculate, and then how the whole invoice is made, and what kind of how do you add the tax, and all these things are discussed in this in detail. And in addition to the percentage based on the cost of the project, there are two other methods also mentioned, because it's prevalent. So we don't want to be blind to those methods. For instance, square meter basis or square foot basis, that is also prevalent. So we should not leave it. So that method is also discussed, though the tabulation itself is only for the cost of the project in terms of percentage. The other methods that are prevalent are also discussed in this volume for the fee structure. Okay, that is about the volume number 4. Volume 5 is an interesting one. Interesting in the sense, in a way, I say in a way, it's a hand holding for the young startups. Not necessarily young startups, even if we are starting up later in the year or later in the age also, it is a kind of a hand holding. Like it even starts with you have to necessarily be registered with Council of Architecture, though it is goes without saying someone is, but we have to say that it cannot go without saying, because it's happening. Like people are even after graduation without registration, people are practicing. So, but which is illegal, we have to say that. So that's why in the hand holding, first thing we are telling is go and become go and get registered with council and come back and continue reading this. That's what the very first line will be telling. And then it talks about in a practice, how to manage the management of a practice, management of an office. It even goes to the extent of telling what kind of staffing pattern you should have. There is a tabular column interestingly provided in this staffing pattern for say that based on turnover, what kind of turnover you normally make, what's the size of the, what should be the size of the office and all that. It's all given in this. In addition to that, of course, all the other things like how what should your library have, what kind of catalogs you should have, what kind of drawings you make, and even there's a templates of how the drawings are working drawings are done, and all these things are also given in the volume number 5. It is a kind of a ready reckoner for the you can say fresh startups as well as senior practices, because anytime they can, if they have some doubt about an aspect of managing the office or something, they can always go through that, and then like it goes to the some graphics are given, see, in which like pyramids, in which the say the draftsman kind of lower staff requirement will be more, and the pyramid will have the designers on top with the less number, and then whereas there are cases with pyramids with more say for instance repeated projects and things like that, like you don't require too much of thinkers for instance, or designers for instance, and whereas you will be requiring more of a draftsman kind of a thing. Like we suppose there is a huge township in which 1,000 houses are there or something like that. No, there the thinking process will end at one point of time or something. So like that, there are some graphics given about the structure of the practice itself, and like I was telling, the tabulation given about the scale, what should be the staffing pattern also, like this is only a suggestive one. Of course, it may be varying from practice to practice or place to place, or if it's a smaller town, it may be that may be there, but we have given the kind of an idea of how it can be done. Okay, so like that, these 5 volumes is covering the practice, including the ethics part of it, in a comprehensive manner. These 7 architects have contributed exhaustively, and they are based on their experience, based on their exposure, based on their passion they have towards the profession. And so like now the point is about outreach, how to reach this to the end users, the stakeholders. That is important. That's when organizations like IEA should play a role. Like after all, it is for architects to start with, and also for the rest of the stakeholders. So the IEA should have a method by which it should reach to all the members of IEA, non-members of IEA, and also other stakeholders. That they should devise. Already launching was done in Mumbai, and in which very eminent architects were present, and then they are given their appreciation as well as their comments. And interestingly, immediately after the launch, there was an outreach program, I will call it, though they called it again a launch only, but it was an outreach. Like in Kerala, this manual was presented to the additional chief secretary of the state on stage, and then with a request that it should be passed on to all their officers so that they follow this. And not only that, the president was made a state guest of that state, Kerala, and then with the government car waiting at the airport to receive him and then taking him to the hotel and so on. And an appointment was fixed with the chief minister of the state, and the core members, president, vice president, and the convener, along with the Kerala chapter persons, went and presented the volumes to the chief minister of Kerala, and also to the concerned secretaries dealing with architecture and buildings, PWD, municipal secretary, and so on. They have presented this volume to those secretaries also, with the request to write to their officers to follow this. So this was a kind of outreach that Kerala state has done. What will be the outcome of that and the follow-up of that is yet to be seen. But the other states, particularly through IEA or any other organization, should also do the similar outreach program should happen in all other states also. And when they are doing that, they should see to that the other stakeholders are also informed of that. The information is taken to the other stakeholders, like builders, the co-consultants, and so on. And maybe you can the Builders Association or CREDAI or such other stakeholders should also be taken into confidence, and then the information should reach them also. So that kind of outreach is one thing. Second thing, this is as an outreach program they should do, but whenever they come to know any corporate or government is planning to do a project, and they may not have any idea how to go about, how to engage an architect and how to conduct a competition. At that time, maybe IIA or any other interested, maybe individual architect who knows them or something, they should provide this copy, and maybe they should highlight the part which is important, because they will not go through all the 5 volumes. When you say give these 5 volumes and you follow this, that is not they may not follow. So, at that point of time, whichever part is very relevant for them to know, like see, there is a tabular column in which says the engagement of architect can be done in these ways and best suited for whom. So, that you should highlight and show this is best suited for this, or you can follow this method or this method. Like that part, I think instead of architects can do, and others can also do. So, whenever you come to know that there is a project, okay, see that this manual is made use of in an appropriate manner.